Hi guys, welcome back to SwitchUp and another review provided to us by our good friend Dave Morrish, who has his own channel, Saved X Gaming. We'll pop a link to that in the top pinned comment. This one also comes from Devolver Digital, so you know it's going to be something interesting. Boomerang X is a first-person action game where you must take out waves of enemies with your trusty razor-edge boomerang. While doing so, you learn some stylish moves to help you keep your momentum going and take out more difficult foes. Is this a game that really excels, or should you throw it away and hope it doesn't come back? Let's find out. The game begins with you washing up on an island and throwing your broken spear away. With no sign of Tom Hanks talking to a volleyball, you wander inside the caves and discover the razor-edged boomerang. This is your weapon for the entire game. The game is structured into two types of sections. The main attraction being the arenas where you fight waves of enemies, and there's also the corridor areas in between. When you enter an arena, there will be a crystal to break to initiate the battle, so you do get given time to get a feel for the room before you need to fight for your life. This is only a small thing, but I wanted to highlight it as it shows the amount of care that's gone into the game's design. It can get unforgiving in difficulty as you progress, with the terrain becoming harder to navigate with fewer spaces to stand, so the fact that you can freely wander around and practice moving around the room really is a nice little touch. You press B to jump and ZR to throw your boomerang, which will of course come flying back to you. You quickly gain the ability to charge your boomerang by holding down ZR. To start off with, this is all you can do, and your first arena battle is pretty straightforward, but there are plenty more moves to learn in between each one. You typically gain a new ability after each battle. The most notable ability is slingshotting yourself towards your boomerang after you've thrown it with another press of ZR. This doesn't take all that long to get used to, but it always felt satisfying to pull off, and I was constantly navigating the airspace around this world. The developers must have realised they were onto a winner with this. I mentioned earlier that safe ground to stand on became more and more scarce as you progress through the game, and on the last few arenas, I spent at least 99% of the battle airborne. Another example in how much care and attention went into it comes from how the different abilities are given to you. Looking at the completed moveset as a whole, it could be very overwhelming for a newcomer, so the game teaches you one new move at a time, with a horde battle before you learn the next. This not only lets you get to grips with the new move before learning the next one, but also helps get it ingrained in your memory and become a part of your playstyle and not forgotten about later. Learning a new move between arenas also presents you with an obstacle that you need to use that move to get past. The moves themselves were very cleverly dished out, so I was learning it just as I needed to, almost as if the game was listening to my thoughts and addressing any criticisms I had. The battles themselves come in multiple waves. You don't need to take out every single enemy to complete one, just the main ones. The main enemies will have yellow targets above their head, and it will display in the top right corner how many there are left until the round is complete. You start out with 1 hit point, but you gain more between battles. There are no checkpoints during them, and each time you die, you respawn from the first wave, but it does auto-save before and after the battle's complete. The enemies themselves are varied. You have your bog standard ones that are modelled after bugs. Some can fly but can be easily dispatched with 1 hit, but then you get some more interesting ones later on. The stronger of these have obvious weak spots, being red orbs attached to them, but they aren't always easy to hit. The frogs have one on their back and one on their belly, which you need to wait for them to jump in the air to hit. Some wizards-like enemies teleport quickly, so you need to be ready to hit them as they appear, and sometimes you can find these giant giraffe-like creatures with multiple weak points around their body, and you need to hit each and every one. The game does get very difficult towards the end, and I found myself getting better and better with practice, and I always felt motivated to keep on trying even when I was down to 1 more enemy on the final wave of the final arena and I died. I just had to try again, and this is mostly down to how incredible the controls are. Getting into a rhythm and throwing a charged shot, slingshotting towards it in the air, charging another while slowing down time with flux so you can scout where the enemies are, deciding whether to target a nearby one, evading an attack or finding a better position, all without losing any momentum, never stopped feeling satisfying. A fast-paced game like this needs to have tight controls, and this delivers on every front. I mostly played using the basic dual analog controls, which I found worked well, but you do have a few options for gyro aiming. There's also an interesting option called flick stick. This has all the camera aiming done by gyro, and the right stick can be flicked left and right, so immediately turning the camera 90 degrees, or flicked down to turn you 180. I found for a fast-paced game of this nature, I couldn't get the hang of it, especially as the camera would keep changing when I wasn't even touching the stick. Overall, the gameplay is fast-paced and frantic, but a lot of fun. It does get very difficult towards the end and sadly felt a bit cheap at times, but it was never so much that I lost my motivation to keep trying. Gameplay scores 18 out of 20, and those controls, they score 19 out of 20. The game has a cel-shaded art style. You have a variety of locales, exploring the gloomier cave settings between battles to more vibrant areas that host the waves of enemies you must slaughter. The enemies are all black, which makes them easy to spot against the colourful backgrounds. Each arena has a different look and feel, so it makes them more memorable. There are plenty of nice touches visually that enhance the gameplay experience, such as the main enemies you need to kill are helpfully marked with a yellow glow, so it's easy to pinpoint their locations among the hectic battles. The red weak spots on enemies make a nice contrast to their black bodies, making them easy to spot. And when you need to defeat the teleporting enemies quickly, there's a handy trail showing you which direction they'll reappear in. The arenas are complemented by a fantastic soundtrack, at times reminiscent of Japanese battle music, with the fast drums and shamisen keeping an intense pace to motivate you for battle. And sometimes there was some fast-paced piano which reminded me of Zelda. This contrasts with the quieter moments in between battles, giving you a feeling of relief before you need to jump into the next one. For the most part, the game ran well, although there were a few times that it froze for a microsecond when turning. These instances were few and far between, but I felt it worth pointing out. It's beautifully presented, with different arenas that are memorable and varied, with plenty of elements that enhance the gameplay experience, along with a fantastic soundtrack. Graphics score 18 out of 20, and sound and audio scores 18 out of 20. Boomerang X will cost you £17.99 or your regional equivalent. For this, you're getting an adventure that's 13 chapters long, which wouldn't take you too long to beat if you were to blast straight through it, but this wasn't the case for me as the difficulty increased, and it took me around 8 hours to see the ending. There are plenty of options to play in different ways. You can turn off all shields if you want, a really brutal challenge, and there's also a New Game Plus after you finish it. Although it isn't a particularly long title, for the price you're paying, I feel it offers good value, especially in the quality of it, the length of time it takes you to beat it, and also the options that you have to alter the experience in a way you feel comfortable with. I give value 16 out of 20. Boomerang X is fun, fast, frantic, and other words that start with F. Fabulous. There we go. Encapsulates a grand feeling of momentum as you launch yourself across the arenas, taking out waves of enemies, and it always felt satisfying. It can get difficult towards the end, but the settings can be adjusted to make things easier on the fly. That, paired with the way the moves and gameplay elements are introduced to you gradually, makes this a very accessible one for newcomers to pick up. Add on to that the beautiful art style and fantastic music, and once again Devolver Digital have proved they know how to pick an absolute belter. Boomerang excellent. Gets 89%. On behalf of Glen and I apologise profusely for the proliferation of those less than perfect puns from Dave. Thanks though, Dave, for writing the review. Stick around if you enjoy the content on this channel, and as always, for all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!